Hello and welcome to the first ever Ball So Hard NBA betting pod.
First nigga better find me. What's 50 grand to a motherfucker like me? Can you please remind me? Ball so hard, this shit crazy. I don't know that no shit phase. Let's go 0 for 82 when I look at you like this shit crazy.
And hopefully we'll go better than 0 for 82, but let's see. Welcome, Evan. This is your first spot on the podcast. How you going today, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me, guys.
It's our pleasure. And we've got Alex actually joining us from his car. He's on the road, getting to work today. How you going, Alex?
How you going, boys?
Good, mate. I hope you're parking up in a shady spot. I know you can get pretty sweaty in that car.
That is very true, but I get sweaty in most places, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, let's not get into that too much. So, as we said, we've been making a bit of money on the NBA. It's been an awesome season, and so to be remiss of us to not share that with pod listeners. We've brought Ev in. He played a few years of college ball. He's originally born in Sacktown, so brought him in for his expertise as well. And I might just kind of introduce the show by saying, like, there's a lot of the same betting principles that we've exposed to people about NRL that apply to NBA. So you're still looking for the diamond in the rough. You're looking for underrated sides. You've got to think about injuries. You want to play on teams after bad performances, you know, and there are opportunities to make good money.
It's probably even more so in the NBA than in the NRL, because you've got 82 games in the season. You've got games happening every day. You've got back-to-back scenarios where teams are playing two games in successive days. And also, obviously we've been talking about betting on teams after a bad loss and betting against teams after a big win. And that's even more so in the NBA because people remember that it's only, a day or two ago.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about remembering that no one's as good as their best performance and no one's as bad as their worst performance. And basketball by nature is a pretty highly variable sport where some nights the shots are going down, other nights they're not. And it was an awesome season 14-15. For me, the thing that stood out was the Warriors. They were just an absolute juggernaut this year. They've been a good up-and-coming team for a couple of years, but this year with a new coach, Steve Kerr, people might remember him, played on title-winning teams in Chicago and San Antonio. Awesome basketball mind. And that team was just unstoppable. They just killed everyone in their path. They won 67 games, and they're going to be really hard to stop. For me, they're the team to beat in the playoffs. What did you take away from the season, Ev?
Look, I was really impressed with the Atlanta Hawks over in the East. I knew they were a good team for a few years now, but the play of Kyle Korver shooting 50% from three-point and Jeff Teague at the point guard with Al Horford, in the front court, they were terrific. They were terrific all year. They only won, 6 or 7 less games than Golden State. So, their season was terrific as well, and they were a little bit overshadowed by the Western Conference, but they'll be a hard team to beat in a 7-game series as well. That's
very true. And one fact about the Hawks is because the East is so weak, they were able to sit starters for the last 2 months, so they really cantered their way through into the playoffs. They could have won more games if they needed it. What about you both, and what did you take away from this season?
Mine's a bit of a rant. Alright, so in the NBA, obviously, it's a little bit different to the NRL. The NRL, you've just got your 16 teams, the top 8 make the finals, but in the NBA, you've got different divisions, 2 separate conferences. You've got the West and East, and then you've got divisions where they separate you into a group of teams, like a cluster of teams, depending on your geography. And this year, I guess, what I would love to see is that the best 16 teams, the 16 teams with the best record, make it into the playoffs. Obviously, this year we've got, obviously OKC missing out with Russell Westbrook having a bloody career season. But we've got 2 absolutely horrendous teams in the Celtics and the Nets, basically just falling their way into the playoffs because of how it works, both with losing records. I think they need to have a good hard look at the way they structure the playoffs. I think they should just have the 16 best teams in there, and that should be it. It shouldn't be, you win your division and you may have a worse record than someone else, but because you've won your division, you get home court in the first round. So that's probably my takeaway. And it sort of affected this season's playoffs more than others, I would say.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a foreign concept to Australian people to be hearing that it's not the best 16 teams that have made the playoffs, but that's just the way the geography works and the way their system works. They try to reduce travel, they try to increase the rivalry games, but it does mean sometimes you can have just a stacked side of the country with better sides, and they didn't all get through. We're going to try and use that to our advantage in our betting as well. One other point about the regular season, it was an epic MVP race. We've got so many superstars in the league at the moment. So why don't you tell us, both, who was your MVP this year?
Well, look, you've got to say Curry. There's certainly, I think there's a top three that are far and beyond the best. It's Curry, Harden, and Davis, in my opinion. But I mean, when you've got Curry, obviously far and away the best player on a historically good team, you can't really look past that, and I think he will get it. But I think Harden and Davis have done, tremendous things for their team. I mean, they've basically piggybacked their team. Well, Davis piggybacked his team to the playoffs, and obviously Harden, doing just outstanding things to get the 2 seed there without Dwight. If I had to vote on it, I'd still vote for Curry.
How about yourself, Bron? How have you seen the MVP race?
Look, I'd like Anthony Davis to win the MVP. I mean, he was just ridiculous defensively and offensively. He had over 200 shot blocks. He recorded over 100 steals. As a forward center, to record that some numbers, like especially, that's amazing. But I think if you were to bet on it, Curry's a clear favourite. I think he's going to win it.
And I tend to agree. I think Curry wins it. I think that's a typical formula, the best player on the best team, and it wouldn't be undeserved. He's been absolutely on fire, and his numbers aren't quite there with Davis and Harden, but it's not totally his fault because he's sitting on the bench in the fourth quarters because the game's already over and they're already up 30. He's a very worthy candidate. For me, I think the person that should win it is Harden because he had to put the team on his back. He had to play 40 minutes every night. I think he played just about every game this season. They sustained a lot of injuries around him, and he dragged that team all the way to the 2nd seed in the West. But I probably agree with you guys that we think Steph Curry is going to win that award. And, there's no real wrong choice here. We haven't even mentioned LeBron James or Russell Westbrook, and that says about how strong the race was this year.
Yeah.
Now, without any further ado, why don't we get into previewing the playoff series? So let's start in the Eastern Conference, both. What have you got for us?
Yeah, definitely, mate. And I've actually got the playoff series on, so I think they're just going in order of the games being played. So I'll just do it that. So we might flip flop back between the West and the East, but this way we'll get through all the games. The first one on the slate, I've got the Raptors -1.5 games against the Wiz.
And we better just explain quickly that these games, not everyone might know, are best of 7 series. So when Alex says -1.5, he's talking about in the game series. So a team can win a series. You've got to get to 4 to win the series. So you can win either 4-3, 4-2, 4-1 or 4-0. So you're saying the Raptors with home court, I think they're the 4 seed hosting the Wiz. And you've got to lay 1.5 games. Now my first instinct is this series looks to be going to 7 for me. 2 really good up-and-coming teams. I love the backcourts in both teams. Is either of these teams winning this game before Game 7? What do you reckon, Evan?
I haven't been too impressed with Washington near the end of the year. I know they sort of slowed down and they rested a few guys, but they have had injuries, especially to Nene at centre. Nene. So, they could be exposed a little bit. Toronto have got some big dudes up front. If Nene's sitting on the bench late in games, especially with his injuries, could finish up in 5 or 6 for Toronto, I think.
You got Toronto winning in 5 or 6,
yeah.
Eh? And what about you both? How do you see this one?
Mate, this is a toss-up for me. But I will tell you this much, that this is going to be a brutal series, and I agree. I think it may go to 7 this one, and it's going to soften up whoever wins this one for the next round because they're travelling, obviously to and from Canada, and I can see this one going the distance. It all depends on how healthy, obviously, John Wall and Brad Beal are, but also DeMar DeRozan. He's had a bit of rest towards the end of the season. but he's an absolute monster as well. And he can just go off. But likewise with Wall and Beal, they can just go off as well. So this is probably one that kind of should be on, I guess the Raptors should be a little bit on upset alert here. But yeah, I can't, it's hard to pick a winner here, but I mean, if I'd probably say the Wiz, just getting that value.
Yeah, and if you're pressing me, I'm going to take... You've got to remember that Toronto's got home court. They're going to be hosting Game 7. That place goes mental. They call it Jurassic Park. I'll probably take Toronto in 7, but we're all saying we think it can be close. In fact, Evan's actually picking the underdog, or Evan's picking Toronto. But we all think it can go close. So you're thinking what I'm thinking? If the series line's 1.5, you'd be crazy not to take plus 1.5 games with the Wiz.
Yes, yeah, I agree. And I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's a 50-50 series. I think the Wiz could win it. But I think, yeah, obviously, if we both think it's perhaps going 7 games, if it goes to 7 games, you've already won your bet. So, I mean, I'd be happy to take the Wiz.
All right, let's mark that down. That's a best bet. What series you got for us next?
We're hopping over to the Western Conference with the number 1 seed Golden State Warriors taking on the Pels, who scraped into the playoffs. Now, the line's basically a sweep or not a sweep. Warriors -3.5.
And I'll start us off, like as I said at the beginning of the pod, the Warriors have just crushed teams. They really have. Their starters aren't playing in the fourth quarter. They've eviscerated teams, and they've done it with jump shooting. They've got 2 of the best shooting guards just about in the modern era, just about ever, led by Steph Curry, who we all agree probably wins the MVP. One thing in a betting perspective, I will say, it's hard to get a lot of value when you've got a team that has been so dominant because everybody knows about it. But I will tell you, if you put your money on Golden State, the one good thing you've got going for you is you're never out of the game. You're going to be entertained. You at least know you've got a team that can put on 12 points in the blink of an eye, and that's kind of fun. But I'm actually on the other side. You said that the Pelicans scraped into the playoffs, and that's true. They needed to win the final game of the season. But that's nothing against the Pelicans. They had a few injuries this year. They're absolutely loaded side, really, led by Anthony Davis, who we might speak a little bit more about later. So for me, I think the Pelicans can really cause some trouble for Golden State. I think they can chase them off the three-point line, and I think they've got something that our friend Heathy doesn't have, and that's rim protection. And that's going to help you win close games. What about you?
Yeah, look, we've spoken about how much of a beast Anthony Davis is. I think Pelicans are probably going to steal 2 close games off Golden State here. I'm guessing in New Orleans, but yeah, this isn't going to be a sweep.
What do you say, Botha?
Yeah, I like it. Look, obviously, when you have the Splash Brothers, they can just turn it on in the third quarter. But in saying that, you know, you saw what Anthony Davis did against the Spurs in the last game of the season. That guy is clutch. And obviously hitting a buzzer-beating 3 against OKC a few weeks ago. Look, yeah, I mean, that guy's going to turn it on for a game, and that was the Spurs fighting for a second spot, so it's not like they were resting players or didn't need that game. Davis is going to be an absolute monster in at least one of these games, and I agree they're getting 1, if not 2 games, but don't think they're going to win the series. But certainly, I don't think Golden State's going to sweep this.
And it sounds like we've got another best bet on our hands. We were going to save this for a little bit later in the pod, but I think it's relevant to talk about Anthony Davis right now. If you're a casual NBA fan, maybe you've heard of Anthony Davis. If you don't follow the NBA too closely, maybe you haven't. And you need to hear about him. The guy is absolutely unbelievable. I'm just going to list some names of players here. Bill Russell, Kareem, Magic, Larry Bird, Barkley, Malone, Hakeem, Shaq, Duncan, Dirk, Kobe, Wade. Now, those players, you've probably heard of a few of them. They're the best players to ever play in the league. None of those players ever put up a PER or a statistical measure of a season as high as Anthony Davis just did. And he turned 22 last month. The guy is absolutely incredible. He's 7 foot tall, 8 foot wingspan. He can do everything. He swats shots into row Z. The guy does everything on both sides of the floor. I mean, He's the longest player in the league in probably every single way. And he can take his team a long way. So I've bought a lot of Davis stock last year. The price is soaring, but it's not going to go any lower. All aboard the Davis train, Get on board. We're saving you a couple seats on the bandwagon. It's getting pretty crowded, but there's still time to jump on board.
The thing is, and I've talked about this before, is that, and it's the same with like chicks and stuff, you can't have like a really hot chick also like smart and funny and like nice, you just can't have everything.
I've never met one.
Davis is an absolute monster of a basketball player, but he is one ugly motherfucker. Guy has an eyebrow.
Don't get fired. Don't get fired.
Yeah, the guy has an eyebrow that goes the length of his forehead, and it's like, you have to be good at something if you look like that. And he is a monster.
If you haven't heard of Anthony Davis, maybe you've heard of him as the Brow. Anything to add on the Brow, Ev?
Oh, I've just got one stat for you. When the game's on the line, so when Anthony Davis is attempting a game-tying field goal or a goal-head field goal in the final 60 seconds of a fourth quarter overtime, he's shooting 88%.
That's incredible. Yeah, he actually, that's, not a huge sample size, so that's, ridiculous. But, yeah, he has been clutch this season, and they only got into the playoffs by one game, and his shots were the difference. And in the playoffs, being able to make that shot late in games can decide a series.
The problem is he's got no one else. There's no one else on that team. Tyreek's all right. And I agree when Tyreek and the Brow are on a pick and roll, it's almost undefendable. But, if he was on a team with a legit point guard, CP or something like that, that would be an absolutely monster team.
Well, I've got one word to say to that, mate.
Yep.
Drew. You're forgetting about Drew. Drew Holiday, the point guard for the Pelicans. He's back from injury. And
Eric Gordon.
I think everyone's going to be saying Drew a few times during this series. Drew. All right, next series, mate. We're taking Pelicans plus 3.5. That'll be a best bet for sure. I love that one too.
Yeah, definitely. All right, moving back over to the East, we got the Bulls, 2.5 game favourites against the Bucks.
I don't have much to say about this one. I think the Bulls are winning that series. The Bucks are really long as well, really athletic. It's going to be a pretty boring series because there's not going to be a lot of shots made. I think the Bulls have struggled with health all season. I want to see how they start to get going once they get healthy. And look out for Nikola Mirotic, the Serbian gangster with a beard. He can make outside shots, and he could be an X factor on this team. I'm picking the Bulls in probably 4 games. You said the line's 2.5, so I don't love it, but I think the Bulls will get through reasonably comfortably. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. The Bulls are going to win that series. It's going to be a boring series. It's going to be a low-scoring series, lots of D, because obviously Tom Thibodeau loves the D. And, the Bulls will win. I don't see value. The Bucks will put up a little bit of a fight, but, Bulls probably in 5 or 6.
What do you reckon, Evan, about lots of D?
Well, I think this is a stay-away series as well for me.
Good call. What do you got next for us, Boza?
We got the Rockets, -2 games, hosting the Mavs.
Yeah, now this one's an interesting one. The Rockets, obviously, on the back of James Harden, they've got all the way to the 2 seed. The Mavs kind of fell apart. They pulled a mid-season trade for Rondo. Is Rondo better than I think he is?
No, his best years are behind him. His Celtic days are gone. Dirk's just getting older every day.
Most people do.
Yeah, well, I don't see this Dallas team causing Jimmy Harden and the Rockets any upset.
What are you picking there, Ed?
Oh, well, let's not forget that the Rockets were only one Damian Lillard fadeaway buzzer-beating 3 away from the Western Finals last year. So this team is a very, very good team. I think they're going to go a step further this year and make the conference finals. I think Houston in 5 or 6.
How do you see this one, Botha?
This one's upset alert for me. I think the Mavs, they've been sleeping a little bit. Everyone's forgotten about him. Dwight, I don't know. He's obviously just come back. They're still limiting his minutes. He's not the same Dwight that he was back at the Magic when they made the finals. Obviously, Harden is just an absolute monster. But, if you're getting 2 games with the Mavs, I think, they're a little bit of a sleeper, and they could take this to 7 and perhaps
Yeah, this is a funny series, and if you haven't seen Harden play much, he infuriates you when you're against him because he seems to just do the same things every single game. He can pull up and hit a three, and he can shoot it well. He drives and he has this kind of Euro step, like awkward stutter step. He pulls the ball, he shows it to the defender, then he rips it past them, and he just has an uncanny ability of getting a layup or getting to the free throw line. I feel like it's going to be really frustrating, but I think the Mavs are a really smart team. I think in the playoffs, everything slows down, everything becomes a half-court game. I think the Mavs, anchored by Tyson Chandler, don't forget this team won a championship a couple of years ago. They've got a great coach. I think they're going to compact the paint and they're going to turn this into a jump shooting series. So now you've got a team with Harden, you've got Beverly out, you've got other guys like Josh Smith are going to be forced to take jump shots. That's danger for me, and I prefer the Mavs in a jump shooting series. Guys like Monta Ellis, Dirk, Chandler Parsons. I agree with you. I can smell an upset here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rockets do just find a way to squeak it out just because Harden's the best player on the floor. But you said the line's 2 games. I'll be tempted to take the Mavs plus 2 games in this series.
Beverly out and Monte Eunice out. Obviously, Harden's been doing it all by himself that back end of the season, and he's done awfully well to get him the 2 seed. But I think, Dallas is sleeping. They're a much better playoff team than they are during the regular season. I think the experience on that team is certainly going to show. And I'd take the Mavs plus 2.
Yeah, just one last thing about Dirk. I think he hasn't got much life in the legs yet, as you alluded to, Ev. But I think he is saving himself for the playoffs, and he will play a few more minutes. There's no back-to-backs in the playoffs. That favours an older team. Now, I think we've done 4 series. Before we jump in and do the remaining 4, we've got a couple rapid-fire questions here, boys. So I'm just going to hit you up, just a one-line answer to these. I'll start with you, Ev. Would a healthy OKC have won the title this year?
Yes.
What do you say? It's that simple. It's that simple. What about you, Boza? Would a healthy OKC have taken it out?
Maybe. The issue is, even if Durant got healthy at the right time, they still would have been stuck in the bottom, in that 5 to 8 seed. And in an absolutely loaded West, they would have probably had to go, I guess depending how it shaped out, they would have probably had to go past, the Spurs, plus Golden State, plus, away to someone like, I don't know, the Grizz or something like that in the first round. Just coming out of that loaded West, being away for all 3 series is just awfully rough. And I think, obviously what Westbrook was doing was just ridiculous. He obviously wouldn't have been getting those stats if Durant was there. Look, I think there's a chance, but if you gave me a pick 'em, or whether they would have won, come out of the West or not, I would have said no.
And I'm actually with you, Ev. I think what Russell Westbrook was able to do was superhuman. The guy isn't human. Durant, everyone's forgotten, was turning into the second coming of Michael Jordan. He actually couldn't be stopped when fully healthy. And of course, Serge Ibaka, the surge protector, was out with a knee injury. Yeah, in my opinion, if that team was fully healthy, nobody was beating them 4 times in a series. So it's a real shame that they're not going to be there to contend. Next question here. I'll hit you up again, Evan, first. Okay, you've got to pick the team for your life to win the title. You can have the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors, or you can have all the other 14 teams. Who are you taking? The 2 favourites or the field?
That's a good question. Look, I really believe in Atlanta Hawks. I think the field could take this out.
What do you say, Botha?
No. You're taking the Cavs and you're taking Golden State. The Cavs are coming out of the East. There's no question. They will play the Hawks in the final, but the Hawks just don't have enough firepower for them. That's the finals matchup. You're taking the Cavs and you're taking Golden State.
I'll be taking the field there. I think this Bulls team could really be ready to peak, and I like a couple other teams in the West, which we probably haven't reviewed their series yet. Another quick one, guys. Let's keep this rolling. Will an Australian player have a meaningful moment in the playoffs, Evan?
If there was going to be one, I think it'd be Matthew Dellavedova for the Cavs.
Backup point guard?
Yeah, David Blatt's been playing in more minutes in the second half of the year. The kid can play. Doesn't have a lot of he doesn't have a lot of experience in big games yet, but he can shoot the three. He's good on pick and roll. He's going to make some clutch plays for the Cavs.
What do you say, Botha?
Are the Timberwolves in the playoffs?
Nope. I don't think they have an Australian player either.
Alright. Look, I guess Bogut needs to be healthy for Golden State to go all the way. He's their rim protector. He needs to be fully healthy in order for them to clinch the West there. So I'd say, I mean, Bogut's going to hopefully have a big influence. If he's out, they're not winning the Western Conference.
Yeah, and rim protection is the name of the game. And I'll just give a shout out to Paddy Mills and Aaron Baines, both playing for the Spurs, and they are a crucial part of that second unit. Paddy Mills can also shoot the ball. I did have one more question for the most underrated teams, but I think we'll save that for our finals picks. We've got to zoom through the remaining series, Botha. So what do you got next?
We've got the Cavs, -3, hosting the Celtics.
All right, I'll really quickly give you my thoughts. The Cavs are winning this series in 4 or 5. It's that simple. The Celtics, not enough talent. What do you say, Ed?
Yeah, I agree.
And you, Botha?
Yeah, the Celtics have been relying on their pace and space all year. Things slow down in the playoffs, and they just don't have firepower to compete with the Cavs. I think this is the most likely series for a sweep.
I agree with that. So -3, is that a best bet?
I'm on board.
What's next?
Next we got the Hawks -2.5 hosting the Nets.
This is going to be another pretty boring series. The Nets have a little bit of talent, but they got no heart. This is a 10-man team for me. I can't play this series either. I think the Hawks win it in probably about 5 games.
I tend to agree. I think the Hawks have sort of stumbled into the playoffs, but they're still obviously a great side. The Nets are guff. But it wouldn't surprise me if Atlanta wins this sort of 4-1, something like that. I would never ever bet on the Nets at this sort of line. But in saying that, I don't know. They could steal a couple games at home. I don't think so. There's no value either side for me, so I'll leave this one alone, I think.
Anything to add to that, Ed?
Yeah, no, Atlanta have got this pretty easily. I'd probably stay away from this one too.
What's next, mate?
Next we got the Grizzlies, -1.5, hosting the Blazers.
That's a tough one. I think that line's about right. I really like the Grizzlies. They've had a couple of injuries we're going to have to see, but I think they've got a really solid 5-man unit. Mike Conley at the point all the way through to Gasol, who can protect the rim and also create a lot of offense from the center position. But I'm probably in the camp that really believes in the Blazers. I think anytime they play at home, they've got to be the favourite because they've got a raucous home crowd. So I see the Memphis probably pulling this one out in 7. I'll be surprised if there's a road win in this series.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, both of these teams are a little bit banged up. Obviously, the Blazers lost Wes Matthews, obviously one of their best sort of 2 players. But the Grizz have been banged up as well. This is going to be a brutal series. Obviously, you've got Zach Randolph being an absolute beast, and talking about rim protectors, he's an absolute monster, crashing the boards every single play. I think the Grizz will pull this one out, and I think it'll go to about 6 or even 7.
Yeah, not a best bet, but what do you say, Ev, on this one?
I believe in Memphis as well. Portland are a good team, but defensively, Memphis have been terrific all year too. Marc Gasol, for me, has had an almost MVP season as well. I think Memphis win this in 7 games. Yeah,
it should be a good series. And is there one more to go?
Yeah, we've got the series of the round. It's the Clips hosting the Spurs, and who would have thought the Spurs would have been away for their first playoff match?
Yeah, that's our tight thing.
Spurs 2-point favourites, two-game favourites.
Yeah, and that's interesting because the Spurs are the road team, but they're the favourite in this series, and that's how tight the West was, that one loss dropped the Spurs from 2nd to 6th on the final game of the regular season. The Spurs, of course, are the champs. They've won 5 championships in the last 13 years, led by Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Ginobili, but it's Kawhi Leonard's team now. He's an absolute stud. But having said all that, I think I'm on Lob City. I think that this is the Clippers' year. Chris Paul is maybe still the best point guard in the league, true point guard. It's just their time. Blake Griffin's improved his game. We've got DJ defending the rim. I think I like the Clippers to upset here. What about you, Ev?
I do too. Doc Rivers is a great coach. He's got DeAndre Jordan leading the league in rebounds. The guy's shooting 71% from the field. Everything he touches
Not
is
so
a
high
slam
from
dunk.
the free throw line.
No.
And that could be a factor, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
I just think down low when you've got guys like Griffin and Jordan banging you up for 7 games, I don't think Spurs can handle them here. I think Clippers probably win this in 6.
What do you say, Botha?
This is what I'm talking about. This shouldn't be a first-round match. The Grizz hobbled into home court advantage by winning their division, but I mean, these are they definitely are the 2 best teams after Golden State in the West, and one of them's going to be gone, which is good for everyone else. The Clips are finding form at the right time. They've been absolute monsters. I agree. This is the Clips' year. Chris Paul's not getting any younger, but he's playing some of the best basketball he has in years. Obviously, they've got a healthy Blake Griffin back. DeAndre Jordan might be gone next year, so a little bit of urgency there. But the Spurs, obviously, Tim Duncan, one of the greatest players of all time, you may say, going for his 6th ring. You've got Kawhi Leonard, an absolute monster. But I can't wait to see the battle between Tony Parker and Chris Paul. And also, obviously, Tim Duncan and Blake Griffin and DeAndre around the boards. This is going to be a cracker of a series. And if I'm getting 2 games with the Clips, I think they might even win this one. I'm taking that every day of the week.
100%. Yeah, that's another best bet. I think we all agree. Awesome series, and we all see the Clips actually getting through there and kicking out the champs. So that's the series. Before we just wrap up our best bets, I think we had 4 or 5 there. Botha, tell us your finals. Who's taking it out?
I really want to see Golden State take it out, and I think I can make a strong case that they will. They've been a historically good regular season team with an average winning margin of over 10 points. There's not a whole lot of sides that have done that throughout history. They've got 2 of the best three-point shooting players in the league. If Bogut can stay healthy, I think they can make their way through the West, and I think they'll give the Cavs fits in the final. I think the Cavs are making it out of the East. I think the Hawks aren't sort of hitting their stride at the right time. I think it'll be a Hawks-Cavs East final, and the Cavs come out of that. And in the other side, I'll take a Clips Warriors final.
Yeah, very bold of you both. Are taking both the favourites there. Have you told us who you think wins the title? You say the Warriors?
Yeah.
What do you say, Ev?
I agree with Bo there. I think Cavs and Atlanta play off in the East Finals, but that's pretty irrelevant because I think Golden State can beat either of them.
Well, you guys have told people not too much. You're taking the favourites. I suppose that's fair enough if that's the way you see it. I'm going to be a little bit bolder, and I'm telling you now, the Bulls are very under the radar. I need an 80 or 90% healthy Derrick Rose, which is a gamble in itself. But if he does get there, I've got Joakim Noah, Defensive Player of the Year last year. I've got Pau Gasol's rejuvenated. Jimmy Butler, who was an MVP candidate. I've got the Bulls beating the Cavs in round 2, making it all the way to the finals, and they're going to beat the Grizz in the finals. That's the way I see it.
You're crazy.
And I'm going to throw in one more. I'm going to throw in a stealth pick. And either of you guys, if you've got a stealth long odds shot because you both took the favourites, I'm going to say the Pelicans, you can find them on Sportsbet at 500 to 1. That's worth a couple of dollars because if they beat the Warriors, people are going to realise just how legit Davis is. And that team, if they can beat the Warriors, they can beat anybody. You got a stealth pick there, Botha?
My stealth pick was actually going to be the Grizz. I do have a future on them to win the West at 9 to 1. And I think I put that on a little while ago. I think it's floated up to like 9.50 or 10 now. They've just been a little bit banged up. But I think they get through that first round. And then, they've they've just got a team made for the playoffs. They've got good D. They play slow ball, which is what the playoffs is all about. I think Randolph can be an absolute beast, protecting the rim. And that's my sleeper out of the West. I don't see anyone getting out of the East. I have to disagree with you with the Bulls. I think they're a little too banged up. No, they don't have a fully healthy team coming into the playoffs. And I think the Cavs, are going to roll them second round.
Time will tell, and both I'll get you to just race through our 5 best bets just straight after Evan tells us if he's got a sleeper candidate.
Look, I don't think there's going to be any upsets in the East. Atlanta, Toronto, Chicago, and Cleveland are getting through. If there is going to be an upset, it's in the West, and I agree with you as well. I think if there is an X factor here, it's probably the Pelicans.
Good call. All right, so we had 4 or 5 best bets, both erased through them for us, and then I think we got to go.
All right, we got the Wizards plus 1.5. We got the Pelicans plus 3.5. We got the Dallas Mavericks plus 2. We got the Cleveland Cavs minus 3. And we've got the Clippers plus 2. That'll wrap it up.
There you go, everybody. What Heathy never does. We've got to wrap this one up. I hope you enjoyed the pod. I hope we can do another NBA pod if this one's well received. Best of luck. Keep your eye out for the regular NRL Try Hard Betting pod. We've got some big plays this weekend. We've got mixed picks underway. It's Judgment Day today. It's all happening. Really appreciate your time, Ev Bron.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Shout out to evsanity, our sponsor as well, changing people's lives. We've had a great time. We hope you've enjoyed it. And as always, please, gamble responsibly.